My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Well, hello. I am here with my fave, Michaeleen. My friend Michaeleen, author of Hunt, Gather, Parent, and we were catching up recently, and we decided afterwards we're just going to do our catch-ups here on the podcast. So this is our first catch-up conversation, and we'll see if it turns out to be anything interesting to any of you. And we're unscripted. We sort of have an idea of what we think we're going to talk about, but you never know with the two of us because it could go in a whole different direction. So yeah, thanks for coming, and I'm excited to talk to you like I always am.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I sent Michaeleen, I sent her this little thing I wrote that goes with a program that I'm in the 6th week of, this PAC leadership program, which is a brand new program that I've been creating. And I keep telling the participants I'm building the plane as we fly it. So I'm studying them, and each week I write a little bit more. And so this week I shared with Michaeleen the sort of the assignment for this week, and it was all about planning, right? Like PAC leaders, we have a plan, and we have to figure out what that plan is. And it sounds so simple, and it actually is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. And so I sent it to Michaeleen because I was really like, I don't know, read this thing and then let's discuss and see where it goes. And of course, you emailed me back and you said, I have lots of thoughts. So now I'm so excited to hear your lots of thoughts about this thing that I sent you.
Well, do you want to explain a little bit about, let me bring it up.
Should I read a little bit?
Yeah. Like tell me your kind of thesis of it.
Okay. So this is in week 6 of a 9-week program. And so we're just starting to talk about, PAC leaders have a plan, and we have to know what the plan is. And when you really think about that, it's like, can you imagine going and working, getting hired for a company, and you're like, well, so what time does work start? Like, what's in there? People are like, I don't know, just come when you get up and get ready. And you're like, and so what usually happens first thing? What do people work on? They're like, you'll just have to see. We're just going to take it as the day comes. And it would be, I think it would be anxiety provoking for most of us because we want to know what to expect. Like, we want the person in a leadership position to say, we start work at 8:00. You'll come in, you'll check in, you'll get your little badge, we'll show you where your desk is, you'll get all set up. People typically go to lunch at this time, blah, blah, they'll get you trained. They'll teach you the plan. But you need your leaders to be clear on what the plan is and then communicate it to you. And I think that although we're not running businesses, we're running families. But if you think about it in that way, it's like we have to have a plan. And so in week 6, why am I only talking about the plan in week 6, 6 and 7? Like, what the hell have I done for the last 5 weeks? Right. And it's interesting because we had to build up to this point of, and really what we've been doing for the last 5 weeks is mostly unpacking all the unpack leadership patterns and where they come from and why they're here. And really understanding, like, one mom, it's so interesting. This one mom, she grew up and I like to call this a case of having too good a mom. Like, she's like, if I all of a sudden found out that I needed to be wearing a purple shirt for whatever thing at school the next day, she's like, I would come home and my mom would have 5 purple shirts for me to choose from. If my mom had to bake a cake to take somewhere, she's like, I remember her telling all like all my friends, their moms were going out to lunch, and my mom was like, "Oh, we can't, I won't be able to join them because I've got to bake a cake."
Yeah.
And she's like, and it never occurred to me that, like, why didn't she bake the cake the night before? Why didn't, like, the
Right.
only option in her mind was to bake the cake so it was fresh right before you were going to serve the cake. And
Wow.
so she said, I realize I never learned problem solving, and I
Right.
never,
Or lots of
eh,
things.
right, or lots of things.
Many
Right,
things, many things.
right,
Autonomy,
right.
confidence, self-sufficiency. Like, I would not call that too good of a mom. I would not put that on the scale. I would put it on the scale of like overdoing it.
Well, I call it too good of a mom in the sense that it's sort of like, you know, the mom was super well intentioned. And I mean, without knowing her mom at all, I would say that she struggles with, she's imprisoned with perfectionism. Everything has
Mm,
to be done in just such a perfect way. And so she doesn't want anything to ever, she doesn't want anything to ever not be perfect. So, like, what if she had just picked up one purple shirt? Or what if they had waited till the last minute and they went to the store and there wasn't a purple shirt? Like, so she's going to, like, make sure that she goes and there's 5 purple shirts to choose from.
right, right.
And so I say too good of a mom because I know the intention is, I just want to get this right. Right. Like, I just don't, and we can look at it from our perspective, but I know that her mom had the best of intentions. She just didn't know what she didn't know. And so now this mom in my pack leadership group, she's like, I I feel like I don't do everything perfectly at all. In fact, we lack structure. It's chaos. I'm always flying by the seat of my pants. I wait till the last minute on things. And so, like, and it was literally like a week ago. She's like, I realized, like, I have a hard time with problem solving. It was interesting. She was sharing a story. She's a speech therapist, and she, goes and meets with kids at school, and calls them out.
Mm,
Just turn this volume off. Um, and so she meets with people, and so she said, so I was running late, and all of a sudden I realized after I dropped my boys off that, oh shit, I don't have my supplies. I don't have my therapy supplies. She goes, where normally I would just have, like, gone by the house and then been later and it would have been a whole thing. She goes, and all of a sudden I realized, like, wait a minute, there's got to be a way to get there on time, even though I don't have the supplies. I've got to be able to figure this out. And she goes, and it just, like, was like, it, hit me like a ton of bricks. She said, I was like, oh, there's a speech therapist on site. For sure. She works with small kids. For sure. She has supplies too. So I just contacted her and asked if I could borrow some of her materials. And she was said, no problem. And it was like problem solved.
yeah.
And she was like, that's so simple. But what I realized is I don't naturally think that way. Like, this is a new skill set that I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
And she was also the mom who was like, oh, I'm just unprepared and I'm unstructured. Can y'all give me some easy meals? She thought that she was coming in to become a pack leader and really was about, like, meal planning, like better
Mm-hmm.
meal planning,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
better meal plan. And I'm not saying that meal planning, I mean, as you know, as I know, like, yes, of course, it's
Yeah.
pack leaders. We're like, we figure out what, we find a system that somebody else is using. And we're like, that sounds like a good one. I think I'm going to use that system. If we're not a systematic, like, I'm not a systematic brain. So we figure out our systems and we figure out our plan. But we're never going to execute on that plan if we're still stuck in our old patterns. So we got to bring those old patterns that have put us on this path of unpack leadership and probably a lot of chaos. And we've got to, like, pull them out of our blind spots and understand them better and study them better. And then we're like, oh, now it's out of my blind spot. Now I can see it. So now I can start creating my systems and my plans and figure out what's going to work for me. But you have to do so much, I think, of that kind of excavation work.
Like
first. Okay.
self-reflection. So
Yeah.
I want to stop. I mean, I want to jump in here because I want to debug a myth out there.
Yeah.
I want to free every man and woman who thinks that like doing all that stuff makes you a good mom. Because I get that it's well intentioned and like comes with, you know, love and like you're doing your best and you're doing, but at the end of the day, if you look around the world and you look at the past, that's not what makes somebody a good mom. In fact, because she had a mom like that, she doesn't have the, she, you know, you said like she doesn't, this problem solving doesn't come, right? But, you know, what a mom, a good mom around the world, and what I would argue is the best mom, if you want to call, if there is such thing, is a mom that allows the child like a lot of autonomy in these situations, right? That like, again, it kind of calling this person like the best mom or the perfect mom, or kind of plays into this myth of like the child's life is the center, right? This very child-centered view of parenting where like, okay, the child needs a shirt, I'm going to get 5 shirts. The child needs a cake, I'm going to bake a cake and not do, right? But like, I would argue that the best mom or a better mom is when it goes on with their life and kind of integrates the child's life into it and gives the child all this room to do these things for themselves. Right? Like I would say, you need to bake a
Yes.
cake. You know what, Rosie? Why don't you figure out which cake you want to bake, and I'll support you. You need a purple shirt. You know what? You tell me when we're gonna. Why don't you ride your bike to the store and get it? You know, depending on the age, right? And it's like, and so I think that I think one of our problems in our society is that and I had this, and I still fight this a lot. But like, is that we see the more we do as being the better, that like that there's like this. I remember in Tanzania, like in this tent, like laying there being like, oh my God, I am just trying way too hard and doing way too much. And that actually what Rosie needs, my daughter's like, is for me to stop doing so much for her. And like, and
Wait a
I'm
bit.
not like a
She
very
needs
like
she needs
aggressive
yeah.
woman, like mom, like, but I was still doing way too much, way too much.
Wasn't that your nickname? Wait a bit.
Wait a bit. That's right. Yes, because I would kept getting my my sweaters caught on the acacia trees, which are like acacia trees, which have these thorns, and like they were like, if you just keep running, you're gonna rip your sweater. But if you get caught in the thorns and you just wait and then kind of undo it, your sweater will be fine.
Isn't that a metaphor for exactly what?
Complete
Yeah.
metaphor. I was doing way
But
too
it's
much.
everything. It's yeah.
Everything.
It's like how brilliant was that? Wait, can
Oh,
you
they
do
knew
you
right
remember?
away. They knew right away,
Can,
like who I
will you
was.
do the? Will you do the? Like
Yeah,
do
I would
the?
do.
How did they?
So it's the name of the tree, and it's like, and so they named everybody that we were with. There was another woman with a young girl that was with us, and they named me and her and Rosie, and Westerners, and Rosie's name was Small Wild Cat, which which is which is like a civic cat, I guess, because she looked like a small wild cat running around the campsite. But and then mine was which was wait a bit, and you know, and it's like that is the metaphor for parenting. It's like but I remember just sitting there being like, everything I do is so much more work than it needs to be done, and that I could do like 10% of what I'm doing, and I would actually, for Rosie, if I was like calculating mom level, you know, you know, how do you grade a mom or rank a mom? But if I was ranking it off of Rosie's behavior and her well-being and our relationship, then me doing 10% of what I was doing would be way better mom. And I think it's really important because I think the pack leader, I love this idea of a pack leader because we are leading them. We are the ones that, whether we want to or not, we are the ones that they're looking up to, right? Everything we do, they look up to us. And so we are leading them. But as a pack leader, I want to model to her, just like you wrote in your plan, that like to step back and let other people do. And you know, let them have a chance at doing these things and taking responsibility and problem solving and having purpose and having meaning. I mean, we were just talking about like, it is, I think, our job to give children the opportunity to contribute and have jobs and have meaning and have purposeful tasks as in our family. I think that is one of our key jobs as a pack leader. And that means stepping back and like being there to help them if they need us or they fall, or, you know, to catch them if they fall metaphorically and like step in, but really like step back and do much, much less than we're doing. So I just wanted to like, I couldn't let it go.
No, I use it. I say things like that for a reason. I 100% agree with you. I say it to soften, because I think that people who are still under the misconception of what our culture has sort of, I don't know, conditioned us all to think, which is a mother being a selfless mother, being a mother who always puts her kids first,
Yeah.
being a mother who prides herself on perfectionism, who's the kind of mom who, of course, she's always going to have whatever supply the school has asked for, and she'll have extras so she can send those in just in case some of the kids who have the kind of moms who don't provide. You know, I think that so many people really believe that to be true.
Mhm.
And I think that people don't know what they don't know. And, I guess for me, I just like, I'm like, I get it. It comes from a beautiful intention. You really want
Beautiful.
to you want to
Yeah.
nail this thing. You want to put
You
your
care
heart and
so
soul.
much. Like that's how
Right.
I felt. Like I
You
cared so
Yes.
I traveled across the world for this child, right? There's no doubt. But for me it was freeing though, Randy. It was freeing to be like, okay, look, if I'm about optimizing this child in us, and I'm about perfection, which I'm not saying I am, but if I was, then actually more perfect is letting go. I
Yes.
mean, there's so
And
much data
yes.
on that, right? It's like if and I mean, I'm still stuck in this mindset of like, I want to do the best thing for her completely. It's not about like lowering your standards. It's about raising your standards. Right. And it's like, but I want to teach her a healthy relationship. I want to have her autonomy, which we know is so important for like mental health. Right. And so once I realized that all these things that we were kind of grading women on as good parent, best parent, better parent, actually weren't really kind of the right things to be grading us on, right? It's just made up. I'm not it was very freeing for me. It was a very much like, oh, if I relax and I kind of let go of this, then the result's going to be better. Then I don't know. For me it
Oh,
was like that.
well, I would tell you that I want to say that in my own personal community, um, ever since my kids, once, like, I was involved when they were in elementary school and preschool, like I would, if they asked for somebody, whatever, I was involved. Once my kids hit middle school, I'm out. And I would say probably the really involved moms in my community, they're probably whispering that, because and I'm aware of it, right? Like I'm if I'm not the mom who's gonna like bring the baked goods. I'm not the mom who's gonna volunteer for things. That's not what I do. I did that in the early years. That felt right for me. And
Yeah.
once my kids hit middle school, that didn't feel right anymore. My kids, frankly, it's like, they're like, okay, we're moving into adolescence. Like, we got to figure
Right.
this shit out.
Right.
And it's funny because Corey, is a senior in high school, and he's on the tennis team, and tennis was a sport that he just started playing last year.
Mm.
And so, which I think I think he is really proud of himself for it, because to learn a brand new sport at 17 years old, and like, he was playing on, last it was the JV team, and he was playing with kids that were much younger than him, and they were better than him.
Oh,
And I'm like, it's awesome. It's awesome.
yeah.
And he loved it. He's like, this is the most fun game. Like, I'm so mad at y'all that you didn't insist that I play this game much younger. And I'm like, well, you can play it for the rest of your life. That's the good news.
That's right. You
And
have a
so,
long time.
right, you have a long time. It's all good. So anyway, this year, he, he's not, he's only been playing for 1 year, so he's not that good. And so he went and advocated to the coach, and he was like, I really want to be on the varsity team. I don't need to be taken to any of the matches. I just want to practice, and like, I love this sport, and I want to practice with kids that are really good. And he's an athletic kid, so I think he knew that like his skill would improve a lot if he played with better players. So he's on the varsity. So I gave that whole preface to say he's on the varsity tennis team, but don't anyone get any ideas that he's that he's Andre Agassi, or whoever the latest and greatest tennis player is. So we're new to this tennis situation, and I started noticing I was getting these emails and from the parents who are throwing like a team dinner on a Friday night. So nice, like hosting it at their house, and I guess providing the food. I don't know if they collect money, and the mom who's coordinating it asking for RSVPs, and she's sending it to me. And so I got a little confused. I was like, so are the families like, are we invited? This is confusing. So I asked Corey, I'm like, do I come to this? Do I need, he's like, no, Mom, it's just for the players. No, you're not invited. I was like, okay, I'm good with that. And I was like, well, did you RSVP? He was like, of course I RSVP'd. So this mom is sending to high school varsity players.
Right.
She's, and she's just a volunteer mom. She's a super nice lady. And, and giving her time to coordinate this effort. But that is the norm. We're going to email the parents and have them RSVP for their high school aged kid for a dinner that the parent isn't even invited to.
So the parent is like the executive assistant.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
that's
we're
what
the
I call it
executive
in my book.
Yes.
It's like I'm like an executive assistant to like a toddler.
Yeah. 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 And that is the norm. And the mom who coordinated pictures for the school dance last weekend, which Scott and I were out of town, and Corey, there was a school dance, and all the parents go and they take pictures. And I was like, oh, we're out of town. I'm telling you, I think they all think we're probably absentee parents at this point, but he's turning 18 on Friday. Like, he's going to college next year. And we were going to see the U2 concert. I bought it for Scott's birthday. Like, I was taking him to that concert, and we were like, oh, you have a school dance. Have so much fun. And the school pictures parents, the mom was like, I need to get Corey's money and this, that, and the other. And I'm going back to Corey, and he's like, I already paid that.
I did it.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. Yes. And then it turned out he sent it to the wrong Venmo. He spelled her name with an A instead of an E. So there was a thing, but I'm over here going, wait, I'm out of the loop. Like,
but you don't need to be in the loop. I mean, I don't even think you need to be in the loop when they're like 10, 11. I mean, like, in many parts of the world, when you're 10, 11, you're like, becoming self-sufficient, like hunting and building and working. And, I mean, I think my point is, like, we are doing children disservice by this perception of, like, you're an absentee parent. No, you're a good parent who's allowing the child to grow and develop as a child should. I have this book that's coming out soon from John Haig on my desk somewhere. Oh yeah, here, I'll show you the cover. It's like, I can describe it. It's like this young girl on her phone and these balls, and it's called The Anxious Generation. And just looking at the cover makes me anxious. This book is very anxiety provoking, but it's all about what we're talking about. It's how kids are anxious because they don't feel like they have control over their lives, at any stage. And this is talking a lot about teenagers. And it's like, this type of parenting where you're doing everything for them, you're RSVPing, you're getting all their shirts, you're making their cakes. Like, this makes an anxious child. I mean,
Hmm.
that is what data show. I mean, out of all of the psychology on parenting, that is one of the strongest pieces of evidence, is like this perfection parenting, which is not that at all. It's increases the likelihood that the child will be anxious as they grow up. And so it's like, I'm trying to say this because I'm trying to say that if you're anybody listening who's not like this, you know, to feel good about it,
Hmm.
like feel good that you're not like this, because this is not, and if you are, then like, and you can do less, and that's how I was, and I felt like I can do less, and I can, and actually I think it will improve your relationship with your child, but it will also improve the child's mental health over time, because
Well, think
children are
about it.
really made to have a lot of autonomy, and as they get older, like from tween to teenager, it's supposed to explode in autonomy, right?
But think about it. If what's being modeled is perfectionism,
Yes.
then the human experience, as we know, is super imperfect. And so if your parent is always handling every single thing and they show up with perfectionism, then the child is going to be anxious because it's an unattainable model. Like there's no way. It's like they know there's no way they can ever be perfect. And so they have that inner desire to strive maybe for the perfectionism because that's what's being modeled. And it's anxiety provoking because they also, since so much is being done for them, there's an inner knowing that they don't have the skills to do everything
Well,
perfectly.
I think that that's like, if we look at like so one of the things that makes us human is this like constant kind of desire and need to learn. This is some of the stuff
Mhm.
I've been studying recently, is like, this is incredibly important for us to explore and learn. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why video games are so exciting and so popular with boys, is because this is their chance to feel this autonomous exploration, right? So human beings have this incredible need to learn and explore, like in real life and physically. And like, I think if the parent is doing everything for the child, then where's the learning? Right? Like learn, right? And so I think that there's this model of perfectionism that you can't ever attain, which I would argue is not really perfectionism. It's just some made up view of what's perfect parenting. But then there's also a sense of agency that you've lost, right? That like people get anxious and depressed when they feel like they don't have a control over themselves, right? You know it, right? If you feel like the world is very uncertain, or you have this very uncertain event in your life, you get anxious, right? Like what's going to happen? Humans hate uncertainty. So if you don't feel like you get to choose what's going on in your life, then can you imagine feeling that all the time? I think a lot of children feel that way all the time. I don't know what's next because my parents deciding for me. So you have that,
Mhm.
right? And then on top of it, you don't have kind of this really required development stage of like learning to be self-sufficient, learning to solve problems, learning to learn, right? And so our parenting, I mean, and this is, experts have known this for decades, and yet we still kind of go down it, is this very controlling version of parenting, where we think perfection is doing everything for the child, when in fact we could stop doing everything for the child probably around 4. And I know that sounds crazy, but like I mean, I stopped doing everything for Rosie around age 4. And that doesn't mean I don't help her all the time. I help her all the time, and we work together all the time. But like last week, I was up here working at like 5 or 6 o'clock, and she wanted to make cupcakes, and she just made cupcakes, and like nobody helped her, and she's 8.
So
I'm just
great.
saying that like you you can pull back like so much, and I get your point of like other parents judging. There's no doubt about that, right? That it's not just, it's the other parents that have this perception, right? And that put that on you. But it's like what you said before, like, we're the leaders of this, and like, but also at the end of the day, if you really wanted to do what's best for your kids, then you just have to be strong and be like, look, I know this is actually better for my child, I know for Rosie that if I treated her the way you're talking about at the beginning of this, like getting the 5 purple shirts, making the cake, like if I did that, we would have a horrible relationship. So I know
Yeah.
that, and maybe some kids are different, but at the end of the day, like, to me, better parenting, more perfect parenting is doing less.
I completely agree. And as you've said many times, it's saying less, right?
Yes,
Saying less,
absolutely.
it's doing less. And I think, I can't tell you how, I mean, I would say my number one request I've gotten from parents over the years when I've coached them, right? So the parents that come and they work with me, and once, they'll run their scenarios by me and we'll problem solve it and I'll coach them. And so many times people are like, gosh, if only you could come up with something so that like we can just memorize your scripts, like
Mm,
maybe a game or, some kind of a tool so we can say things just like how you say things.
mm,
And that has been the number one request. And I think anyone who requests that is is that parent that struggles with the perfectionism,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because they think there is a right way to say things.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when I workshop and problem solve, I give examples, but I let them know this is my right way of saying things because it's what's coming out of my mouth. But I named this mastermind parenting because what I want you to do is I want you to get out of your own way
Mm,
and and understand what's going on up here. If you're a person that struggles with perfectionism and you think you have to get your kid the 5 shirts, and you're you're practicing mastermind parenting, then you're onto yourself and you're like, why the fuck would I need to get 5 shirts? Like, and I don't even know what color purple she likes. And who knows? Like, we got to talk about this when she gets home. And maybe tonight we'll head over to Target and see if we can find a purple shirt together. Like, I'm happy
yeah.
to drive her to Target, but it's her body, it's her school event. Like, why would I think that this was my responsibility in the first place? Like, what is coming up for me here? What am I so worried about? Like, we're asking ourselves those kinds of questions. Because when you ask yourself those kinds of questions, then you're just on to yourself. Then you're having a conversation with your kid. Then before you know it, like you're like, why did I think I needed the perfect script? I needed to just, like, I know how to have a conversation. I'm actually pretty good with people. And
Right,
so,
right.
like, I just treat my kid like, oh, they are a person and I am crazy about them. And so now I get to just talk to them like a human, like human to human. Like, there's no scripts to memorize. And
It's
so,
interesting because
yeah.
I think this fits with your planning, right? I think when you talk
Mhm.
about like you need a plan, I think it's like this is to me when I read your the planning thing, I was like, for me, this is like I have kind of like 2 North Stars, 2 big ones that um like they're my 2 major goals as a parent. And then everything kind of comes from those, right? And so I don't really need a script and I don't need a tip sheet and all this stuff because like I just is the action are the words the moment aligning with these goals or not, basically. And
Mm,
so when I read your plan, it reminded me of one of my major goals is like to teach Rosie how to interact with people in a respectful way.
mm,
So it's not about being selfish or being selfless, right? It's about being respectful to her and treating her with respect, but also making sure she treats me with respect, right? And like
mhm.
teaching her that because I don't think kids are born knowing that. So it's like this is a process. And a lot of kids aren't taught this. I can see this in the school that we have and the school I've worked with, but they want to know that. They want to know how to treat people with respect because then they get treated with respect back, right? There's like a teaching her reciprocal relationship. And a lot of, I think in your plan is that like, and what you're talking about is like talking to them as people is like, you're teaching them to treat you respectful and you're going to treat them with respect. And so hopefully as she grows up, she's going to find friends and boyfriends and whoever that do the same, right? So that's one of my like North Stars, is like teaching her to be respectful, and then like to treat people with respect. And then the second one is to learn to be self-sufficient and have the skills she needs to take care of herself, right? And so if I bought the 5 shirts, or I made the cake, or I'm just kind of this, it would go against that. It's like, okay, I just ask myself, okay, well, what can I do here to support her, treat her respectfully, but help her learn to be self-sufficient, because that's, I mean, if you just look at the data, that is what makes kids feel good, mentally good, is like learning to be self-sufficient. And so that's when I think of like pack leadership planning as kind of these like big goals, and then what do I need to learn so I support these goals, as well as what do I need to teach her.
So good. I mean, what's interesting is like week 5 of the program, well, weeks 4 and 5 was it's the title of it was um what do I want and what gets in the way.
Mm.
And we literally spent 2 weeks figuring like I, really having them walk through. I said, and I explained and I taught them a whole class about, I basically, the main premise of this one class was it's super normal to focus on what you don't want. And,
Mm-hmm.
because that human negativity bias, like it's a survival instinct for
Yeah.
us to scan for all the things that feel unsafe
Yeah.
or dangerous. Right. And so I'm like, so it doesn't mean you're pessimistic. It doesn't mean you're negative Nelly. It just means you're a human.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to override that programming, that conditioning, and we're going to say, well, what do I want? It's a
Yeah.
much harder question to answer. And I really gave them 2 weeks to really define
Yeah.
what do they want. So like you having those North Stars, and I said, you have to know what you want before you can create a plan,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
this is what is going to anchor you. And most of us, especially women in our society, we're not asking ourselves what we want. What restaurant, what are you in the mood for to eat? I don't know. Whatever you're in the mood for,
Right.
or I mean, so like all that people pleasing and all that old conditioning, I'm like, yeah, that is unpack leadership. We as pack leaders, we have to ask ourselves, what's important to me? What do I want?
Yeah. And
And
our kids need
then,
that. They need
yes,
that. They want that, right? They
yes,
want us to be, I mean, I think it's funny because I think our society actually teaches women like what like the opposite of what I'm talking about with like a reciprocal relationship, right? In a mutually respectful relationship, right? Like this kind of selflessness that you're talking about in your, this pleasing people, doing everything, that is not a reciprocal relationship. That's what we're taught, right? That's what I grew up under and watched, and that's what I saw at work at NPR. Women were there for a long time. They even said like women were there to, this is journalism. Women were there to take care of the men and do the work, behind the scenes work, or drink with the men when they were traveling. I'm not kidding. This was like said like not that far from my time, right? So I think it's good to like acknowledge like this is what we're taught. This is the programming a lot of us have had, right? Is that like when people ask us to do something, we jump. Right? I remember when I was first like kind of, well, what's a reciprocal relationship? What's mutual respect? I was like watching myself, like Rosie would say something, or Matt, my husband, would say something, and I jump and like, what? Oh, because this is how I was programmed to be, right? From society, my family, movies, books, and it's like, but that's not, yes, we can help each other, and we have to also like realize that people need to do things for themselves because that's what makes them happy. And the other builds resentment in me over time, and then I get angry, right? And it's like, so I think so much of us are just programmed and taught not to do this. So it's like, of course we don't do this, right? um but I think we can definitely learn it. I definitely feel like I've learned it, and it just kind of comes from this idea of like does that feel respectful? You know, that's a question I ask myself a lot. Like, does that feel respectful? Like, you know, and I asked Rosie to ask herself that. You know, do you feel like the teacher respected you? Do you feel like your friend was that respectful? And I mean, we've talked a lot about like what that means, and so I feel like that's like maybe this idea of like not being selfish or being selfless is it's not so much about me being selfless. It's more about me wanting her to treat me with respect, because then she's taught, right, to treat with respect, and then the relationship deepens. I worry a little bit that like, you know, couching it as like selfishness in some way, it's like is missing kind of this deepened connection that can happen when you're working together, right? It's like, I don't know, I don't see it as selfish, I think is what I'm trying to get at. I see it as like, actually this is better for you, you know, for me to step back and me to have my own life and me to do my own stuff, but you're welcome to come into it. But also it's teaching you like to not please other people all the time, but also to treat them well, right? When they treat you well, you treat them well back. And so,
Well, for me, when I write self dash ish,
yes, it's good to
right?
point that out. It's not self-ish, it's self-dash-ish.
Right.
And
It's
what does
self
that
dash
mean?
ish. To me, it's when you want people to treat you with respect, you have to treat yourself with respect first. And so asking yourself, what do I want? You know, if
Yes,
somebody's like, hey,
yes,
could you get me a glass of water? Could you do this thing? And like checking in with yourself
yeah,
first. And lots of the time, as you know, as I know, because when we are in that pack leadership mindset, right? It is our pleasure. We come from a place of yes. It's like when that
yes,
documentarian was staying at your house and you got Rosie a bowl of cereal or something and you're
yes,
like,
yes,
why? She was like, why are you doing this for her? And you're like, because I want to help her.
right,
So that's the thing, is that when you check in with yourself first, it doesn't mean you're a selfish person. It means you have respect for
yes,
yourself.
yes,
You're checking
absolutely,
in with yourself, and when you do for other people, it's always coming from a place of generosity, and because you actually want to do it, because it feels good to be helpful. It feels
yes,
good to be generous and to help somebody you love out, right? And so
absolutely,
when I say the opposite of selfless is self dash ish, it's starting with yourself.
yeah,
And then I think I said something like, yeah, but we're not narcissistic assholes. Like, we're going to check in with ourselves. And of course, it's our pleasure to show up for people that we love. Maybe not all the time, because we ourself won't want to all the time.
that's right,
But a lot of
that's
the
right.
time, ourself will. And so we start with ourself first and just check in, and then we show up.
That's right. And I think there's an element of also like, hey, let's work together. I think that
Yeah.
is missing in a lot of our conversation of not our conversation, but our societies, our
Mm-hmm.
culture's conversation with parenting, and it's, you know, when a kid asks for you to do something, you can say no, do it yourself. You can say yes and jump up and do it, or you can also say, hey, let's do it together. You know, and I think that, hey, let's do it together is like this sweet spot, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to get the pleasure of like helping her and supporting her, but I'm going to like teach her how to do it. And I'm going to get this great like time with her where we're like working towards her goal together. You know, I mean, there's so many times when we're doing something together, like cooking, um, hang up the laundry. I really like putting the laundry outside. I don't always do it, but I like it because it's pleasurable to me. I know that's crazy, and if you have more than one kid, I get it. You would never want to do that, but for me, it's a pleasure to hang the laundry on the line. And you know, like the conversations Rosie and I've had during these times is just, they're priceless, right? Because it's just, this is when she tells me everything, right? When she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you about Jane. I mean, she's only 8, but I can imagine, like, because we're relaxed and there's no pressure, and like, and I realize that like kind of getting rid of these times where parent and children are like kind of doing these mindless tasks together, kind of that seem stupid or that we've, is actually like this wonderful moment of connection and sharing. And like, so it's like, to me, I guess my point is like, it's not you do it or I do it, but maybe, hey, let's do it together. And then it's not
So
so much
true.
like a selfless task, right? It becomes, and then the beauty is that like, when I'll ask Rosie to do something and she'll be like, together, mom, together. I'm like,
So
okay,
good.
got it, together,
Yeah.
I think I've been thinking a lot about being a pack leader since you've talked. I love this idea. Sometimes I catch myself actually being like, because I'm the pack leader in my mind. Even though I don't think of myself that way, but it's the truth. I am the pack leader. And, but I think it's about really teaching them how to treat you, right? In a certain way, and how to treat other people in a way where the relationship becomes meaningful and really close and loving and safe and something that my parents didn't teach me. Society. I don't just blame them. Society didn't teach me, and that's what I want as a pack leader.
But don't you think that the real generational pattern, I mean, I know you read that book, you've read 10 other books probably and written too since you read that
The
emotionally
emotionally
immature.
mature
Yeah.
parents. Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's true. I mean, no, it is. It is. There's definitely emotional immaturity at
I
the
mean,
root
how
of
can
this.
people truly be the kind of pack leaders we're talking about if you're still operating from that place where you were raised, and maybe there was like, toxic shame, all these big buzz terms, right? And so you're living with that and it's deeply rooted in your body.
In
And
fear, lots of fear from anger,
yeah,
right?
lots of fear, lots of feeling, lots of messaging that lives within your body that you're not good enough or
Right.
that you need to dance for your supper and prove your worth and all that jazz, right?
And jump when people ask.
Yes. Yes. Make life easier. One of my big things is be a no drama mama. Like, do
Mm.
not bring your problems. Do not
Mm.
inconvenience other people's lives with your problems.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so somewhere I got that message that, yeah, it's not a big deal. I'm fine. It's all good.
Right.
So
I
I
mean, I
would sort
think
of
there's a
just,
lot of messages out there for moms not
yeah.
to bring their. You're only, what does it say? You're only like looking out from the castle. What is the kind of the term? Right? You can't look in. Nobody can look inside the
Hmm.
castle. Only from the outside.
But I think that's the piece is that I like to call, you know, those parts, like they're just like whatever your flavor of soundtrack is. We
Yes.
all have them,
Yes.
right? And so we all have these old soundtracks, and one of my old soundtracks was, yeah, don't it's like gaslighting myself. Like it's
Right.
not that big of a deal. Come on
Mm.
now. And so we all have these soundtracks, and those soundtracks that's what, we started to kind of touch upon and do in the last 5 weeks of that pack leadership group is we have to find those soundtracks because there
Mm.
is a reason why you are in unpacked leadership patterns. And so we're, it's like an archaeological dig,
Yeah.
into yourself. And we all have reasons. We all have familiar patterns. Most of us, because of whatever the soundtrack is, it's most likely some flavor of, yeah, you're screwing this up. You screw everything up. You'll
Right.
never figure this out. And so when that soundtrack is playing in the back of your brain, even though nobody realizes it's playing, you think you're going to be showing up as the pack leader who's like, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we do it together?
Yes.
And right, like, what do you think would be a good option? Are we coming up with the what and how questions? Are we prompting the child to start solving their own problem? Are we, going and saying, I really love fresh clothes. My life is so chaotic and cluttered. I am going to go and we're going to just hang up the clothes and we're going to bond while we.
But that's not how it works. Most of the time it's like,
But you've done a lot of work. My point is that if we think about people that are listening right now, and I do think this is an important conversation. I'm glad that you pushed on the too good of a mom, really? Perfectionism, really? Because I'm like, no, I'm saying that shit tongue in cheek. Like I know we are there, but I'm thinking of the people who are just coming into this conversation. And I'm like, and if you're like, I don't really get this. I can't imagine me and my child just having a beautiful moment hanging clothes or folding clothes. Like that sounds lovely. Like good for you. But my life, do you understand the shit show that I'm dealing with? And so I'm like,
Mhm.
but we all have these soundtracks, and what we're just giving anyone who's listening to this, if you're still listening, we're just giving you a window into what it looks like for us, and we're just trying to unpack it. But I want everyone out there to realize this process, like Rosie's only 8. Michaeleen, you started on this, I mean, when Rosie was like what,
Two.
3?
Two.
2. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the scheme of things, you know, prior to 6 years ago, you were like,
Oh,
you were not where you
I
are
mean, Rosie
today.
Rosie even says, like, she'll tell people that my mom was really angry and yelled all the time until she wrote a book. She was a really mean mom. I think I've even heard her say, no, it's true. I
Same with
mean,
me though. No, it's the same. I mean, look, I tell all the moms I'm working with, I share all the bits of my story, and I'm like, no, my goal is for you guys to figure this shit out in way less time than it took me. Like I've been at this for 25 years. Whenever they're like, gosh, if you had a card deck with all the scripts. I love the way you just said that. I'm like, okay, I have an almost 26-year-old. Like, do you understand? Like that's a quarter. It's not like it is a quarter of a century. It's a long freaking time. And so I've been at this for a bit. And so I just want everyone to realize like we're sharing where we are now and the way we see it. And it wasn't that long ago, even less time for Michaeleen, that we were where you are. And so it's like once we pull some of these patterns in these conversations and they're out of your blind spot and you can see it, you'll start to notice everywhere where you're with a group of parents and it's sort of like it's like the humble bragging of who is doing the most shit for their kids
oh
or
gosh. Yes, the competitive parent.
mhm.
I know. No, it's true. Um, no, life is not perfect by any stretch of even the hang up the clothes isn't. I'm just talking about, like, these very kind of very small moments that of life where, where you see the child, like you say, as this human being, and they see you as this human being, and you're just two human beings kind of there. And I think that's like another goal, is like is like really seeing my child as this like vulnerable human being, right? And allowing her to see me as this vulnerable human being. Like, right, that is kind of the which you're I think what we're trying to get at is like that's the genuine kind of talking to them. That's off script, right? There's no script when you see a person and you value and respect and love them as their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses and their, the and you just say, I love all of that. And I think I want Rosie to feel the same way about me, which means I need to be vulnerable and I need to be show weakness and be honest about my weakness, you know?
And
Um
isn't that just, I mean, that's connection. That's what
yeah.
connection is. I mean, that's why it feels so good.
Yes.
You're right. That's why I think it's like, we're like, we want to, when we see all of the pressure and the podcasts out there that are touting all these performative tactics, right? To be this kind of parent that knows just what to say.
Right.
And I'm like, but you're not supposed to know just what to say.
No.
You're like that. Who wants to, I hate being in conversations with other people where it's just how's the weather conversation and
Or the
you
HR conversation, which is like very
yes.
common now, where it's like, I hear you, I understand you. I'm just like, no, I don't want you to hear me and understand me in that way. Like, like that is like, there's people that like adults that talk to me that way, like not in HR, and I'm just like, this is not, this is not friendship, like I, and I also want to say like, most of the time you don't say anything to children, like nothing, you just have to hug them,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that, like touching them and like holding them and hugging them. Again, just seeing them as this like vulnerable, there's a line, I think maybe in Whole Brain Child, the famous book.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in that book. I'm not sure, but it is Payne Bryson talking about her own child. And it's stuck in my mind for years, where she talks about how the kid was upset, young child in the back seat, and about something, and she was getting ready to like explode on him because she was frustrated or whatever, and she just looked up in the rearview mirror and saw his face, and there's like a moment where she just saw him as this, like, who he was, this little child who's trying hard and is like, clearly not capable of holding in whatever's holding in, and like, she just, I forgot what she says, but it was just like basically like in that moment she saw him as a human being, right? And as like, and who is this, a young child, very vulnerable, very insecure, very needy, and it and it stuck with me because I started trying to see Rosie like that, as is this like, and I started trying to see my husband like that and my mom like that, like this kind of like a softer side, right? And just as a human being who's trying to connect and trying to do what's right. And I mean, some days I think about like, I'm all Rosie has, me and her dad, that's it, right? We
Mm-hmm.
are it. Like, she has some friends and some teachers, but like at the end of the day, we are it. And so like, I just need to be softer, slower, gentler. It's like there's no script. It just is like compassion. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, can I see her like Tina Payne Bryson saw the kid, right? In those moments, can I be, and if I can't, then maybe I walk away for a moment, or like,
Mm-hmm.
or I say something like, I'm getting grumpy. That's my new line at night. I'm getting like, before I get really angry at night, when I'm like, I'm tired and I want to go to bed, I feel it first and I'm like, I'm getting grumpy. I'm getting grumpy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
blaming anybody, but the grump is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Rosie's kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I understand that, because we all get grumpy. So I don't know. That was a big digression.
No, I absolutely love that. Like, so, and I'll share this little human story. It's actually something that Lindsay, Lindsay who works with me. You've heard me talk about Lindsay.
Yeah.
I call her my mastermind parenting co-parent. And so, Lindsay was sharing with one of our groups yesterday. She said, so she's got 3 boys, and it's her middle boy who was the reason that she originally joined my group. So she used to be a client. Now she has worked with me for like 6 years. I wouldn't still be doing what I do if I didn't have a Lindsay. Like, she's my co-parent. And so I probably, maybe I would, I don't know. But anyway, so Lindsay's son, who she joined for, is now in 7th grade.
Mm.
And all through elementary school, he never had a friend. He
Mm.
he and he didn't act like it bothered him. He was, he has 2 brothers, and he would come
Mm.
home, and they're all like 2 years apart or whatever. And yeah, he just he didn't seem to mind. And then he went to middle school, and he's at a small school, and he's made some friends. And last night she says, well, I just got home from doing a double header in baseball, which years ago I gave Lindsay permission. She said this changed her life when I told her she doesn't have to go to baseball games.
Nice.
And she was like, I never even considered that. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, what do I do when he gets home? I was like, you get to be excited to hear. You get to hear it firsthand from him. Like, how was the
Yeah.
game? What tell me about it? Like, was it fun? What was your favorite part? Like, you get to hear about the game. You get the clip notes from the game from your kid.
Yeah.
And if it was a disappointment, you get to sit with them in the disappointment. And if it was wonderful, you get to celebrate again with them. Like, it's the best, go if you want to go, but if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. So for whatever reason, she went to 2 baseball games, I guess 2 different kids, last night. And so she said, so I went, and she's like, I was freezing, I was hungry, and I got home, and I guess it was the oldest and the youngest. She says she gets home and she's like, yeah, it's like, I'm grumpy. I'm freezing.
Yes.
I spent
She's
all these
uncomfortable.
hours.
Yes.
She was
Yes.
uncomfortable in her body.
Yes.
And so she sends pictures how I guess she had called Daniel, her 7th grader. When she got home, he had run her bath and put Epsom salts in it. I mean, yeah.
Wow.
And then he had made her a little snack. And it was like a fruit medley. There was mango. There was
Aw.
all these different fruits, and he put it in a little bowl and he put it next to the bathtub. And I think he even like set it up for her to like watch a show on whatever thing and like
Oh
soak
my
in the
gosh.
tub.
Is this the 7th grader? 7th grade boy.
7th grade boy. And my only response, she shared it with one of our groups, and my only response was, and you worried that he didn't have empathy. She was convinced that he literally was diagnosed with like depression, and I think they were hinting around at that ODD diagnosis, oppositional defiance disorder, which is basically like yeah, sorry, you're screwed. Like your kids, like that ODD diagnosis is like a bullshit diagnosis. And so anyway, she lives 5 minutes from the Houston Medical Center. Like, she has access to some of the best doctors, and so depression and potentially ODD. And now we have a 7th grade boy, and I'm like, yeah. And you thought he didn't have empathy.
No. Oh. I mean, I think that's, if I could say, like, people always ask, like, what is like one thing that you learn from traveling? And, I've been researching now parenting around the world for like 8 years. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is that we just underestimate our kids. We constantly underestimate them. And physically, mentally, everything. I mean, like, when they're little, we overestimate them emotionally. But as they get older, we underestimate them on everything. And I think it goes back to this like pack leadership planning thing where we think we can't take care of ourselves because we need to take care of them all the time. And that is underestimating them, right? And that they actually want to take care of us too. That taking care of us feels good. Like we said at the beginning, like when you help people and you help somebody that you love, it feels good. So why not give them the opportunities to help us? Like, it's not even just about us not doing things for them. It's also about teaching them to care for us and help us. And I think some of the most wonderful, like where Rosie feels like the most excitement and pride in herself is when she does things for me and my husband or my mom now. I mean, I think we're denying them the opportunities to help us. It's funny. There's like one of my favorite stories I was talking to this researcher. She's a Mexican American woman. And she said I might have told you this story, but when she was little, she watched the Brady Bunch and she was like, what's this thing where like you help around the house and you get paid? And she was like, Mom, there's this amazing thing where you like help around the house and then the parent pays the children. And her mom said to her, Mexican immigrant, she said, yeah, interesting. She said, actually, do you live here? And yeah. Do you eat here? And yeah. Do you sleep here? And like, okay, well then you better start cleaning or I'm going to charge you money. or you
So
better start
good.
helping, right? I'm going to charge you money. And it's like kind of this, like we have it kind of flipped around, right? That we're supposed to be helping them so much, but actually they're also supposed to be helping us,
Yes.
and that is really
Yes.
that like mutual respect relationship is we help each other. And so I think that's kind of what we get at when we say like selfish, but it's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like helping each other and it feels good. It is an opportunity for the child to feel good, to grow, to, like I said, we're all they have. So imagine we've hung the moon, we've hung the stars, and they get to help
Mm-hmm.
you, and
It's like but isn't it interesting because it's kind of like people who kill intrinsic motivation by making it all about rewards and
yeah,
bribes,
yeah,
paying for grades and paying for chores, and now all of a sudden you have a kid that they naturally want to help, right? We
yeah,
come into this world being cooperative
super.
animals, right? So like we're
It makes
meant
us
to
humans.
live.
That's
Yes,
that's right. It makes us
we're
human
meant
that we
to.
are like the most cooperative monkey primate out there. That's what being a human is this like drive to cooperate.
Right. And so then we accidentally ruin it by making it about this external bribe. And then you have somebody who is not wanting to be cooperative anymore because they've been trained not to be cooperative. They've been trained. It's like, they're the animal at the zoo who's just waiting to get, somebody to throw them peanuts or whatever it is. It's like they're not doing what their natural instinct is designed to do. Instead, now they've just become about all this artificial thing. And I think we think that we have to, it's like when parents, I think they often kill this whole, like, I want to help you and you get to help me and we get to do it together, and that beautiful feeling, right, when you show up that way
Yeah.
and you're connected to someone. And so I think where a lot of parents get it wrong is they're like, this is not a hotel, really. I'm not paying you. In fact, you need to do this and this or I'm docking you your
Right.
allowance.
Right.
And so, and
I
then
mean,
it's
listen
like,
to that voice, Rizzy.
yes,
Like,
that's
I mean,
so
like, so that's like when I get back to like this idea of like mutual respect. Like, who would you ever talk to like that
right.
in a like that you respected and like right? Like you would just like that's how my dad talked to me, and sometimes my mom talked to me too. Like, and it's like, and I will talk, and if I get into it, I'll talk like that
Mm-hmm.
to Rosie. If I like really, Matt will be like Michaeleen, and I'm like, well, it's in there, But it's like that is not like that is. So it's like no matter what you say in that voice, whatever the script is that somebody obtains from the web or from whatever book, in that voice is never going to work.
Right.
Like it's just going to it will cause fear, and maybe they'll do what you say because they're afraid. But it's like that's what I kind of say. It's like it's not about the script, but it's about your feeling towards them, how you perceive them. Are you the person that's
Well,
like in charge and you're going to tell them, which is the voice I've just heard, right? Or is it like, okay, we're kind of a team and I probably know more than you about what's good for you, when you're little, maybe not. But like I want to help, let's do this together, It's like it's funny because the people tell you like, can you just have this like what did you say? This box of like cards that you
yeah,
like
like a
put
card deck with scripts.
yeah. And it's like because it doesn't matter if you had that card deck, it's your tone that you're using is why it works. It's the way
Mm-hmm.
you are perceiving the child and feeling for the child that works because you're not using
That's
that
so true.
voice. And it's like
Right.
maybe that's the
That it.
training is like just like that's why people also I always say it's I changed me and Rosie's relationship changed when I started changing the way I thought of her.
Mm-hmm.
As like what I said, as this little tiny human being that's trying the best as she can and really wants to please me. Like, can I talk to her that way versus this kid that's like manipulating me, pushing my buttons, just wants to like take as much as possible from me. Then, once I shift my perspective of her and who she is, and I would argue like scientifically it's more accurate as this little tiny being that's trying her best and really wants to help, then I started talking to her in a different way, and then everything changed, right? So it's like, okay, the deck of cards is not going to work if you don't change how you see and think of the child, right?
So true. It's so, yeah, it's so true. Okay, we're going to put a pin in this one. And then we're going to put it, look, as we know, we could riff on these things for a million hours, but we have to go make dinner for people. There's like hungry people showing up at both of our houses soon.
And I like making dinner for people. It feels, not every parent, but it's one skill that is useful that I have. I don't have a lot of
them. When a mom said recently, she said something shifted for her when I shared at some point that I feed people because it makes for me, my anchor is I just always wanted the night to run smoothly. And so if there wasn't a lot of like, oh gosh, what are we eating for dinner energy, if it was just like, yeah, here's the dinner, we're doing it, I was like, it made our night run more smoothly. And that's what I actually cared about. So I just sort of like found my systems.
Right.
I did not come up with them, but I found my systems over the years. And I said, but truly, I feed people. It comes from a place of love, because really, and I don't love cooking, and I don't even think that I'm great at it. I would call myself more of a functional cook. Although I'm getting a little, my husband's been doing it more with me lately. So that might be changing in empty nesterhood, right on time. But I have always provided the dinner and I do it from a place of love, because I want this day to end, and I want it to be a good day. And so when the night goes smoothly, it's just like, that was a good day. That was another good day. Like,
I love that. And I will say that I cook, but in our house, the cook decides the food. It's like, if you're cooking it, then you decide what you get to eat. So in some ways it's selfless, in some ways it's selfish.
Love it.
It's a good balance, right? It's like, this is not input from the other people that are not cooking. No. If you come in and start working, you can make some input.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay. Well, thanks a million. And thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, have a great week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs. And if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching. And I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.